Welcome back to Legends in My Own Mind. And we are sitting here with one of my best friends, my tag partner for like 10 years now.
Jeez, I can't believe
we've been around for a long time.
We've been going around for a long time, yeah.
That's cool. Spotlight Spencer Powers. My good buddy Danny.
What's up, buddy? This is fun.
This is I love it, man. This is so far. This is exactly what I hoped it would be.
Good.
I'm excited to be doing it with you, especially for this first series.
Yeah.
Man, but let's get right into it. I know they're excited. They tuned back in. Last week we covered a little bit of Danny's history, how he got into wrestling and became a fan, how he then got like into the business, how he got into wrestling.
Yeah.
And became a wrestler, all the way up to that moment, right when he was just starting to feel it, starting to learn it.
Yeah, yeah.
So this week, I want to talk a little bit about how you developed as a wrestler. You know?
Okay.
So, I hopefully some of your big lessons, like just kind of how you became the wrestler that you are.
Okay. Yeah.
So we just started New Midwest Wrestling. Has just started. We just started doing real paid shows. We have a fairly professional school. We are a legit indie promotion.
Yes.
And you are El Diablo Silverado.
El Diablo Silverado. One of the big baby faces in the company.
One of the big top three, man.
Which if anybody... Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I was way over. And... that has a lot to do with my development at this time, because I feel like this is also about the time that I started getting a little bit of that indie wrestler ego that everybody goes through. Everybody. This is part of the growth. We all
had it.
We all have it. This is part of the growing pains. But a lot of that came not just from the fact that I could recognize that I was one of the loudest pops at the show, but also the fact that several of the guys backstage were constantly saying things like that. Like, oh, LD he's way over. Listen to that crowd. Every time LD's out there, this and that. So, you start to really kind of, I don't know,
So that's an interesting thing to bring up, because that's also like your first taste of locker room politics.
You're right.
Because that is absolutely a thing. Like, when we think about politics, has become like such a buzzword, for guys like Triple H and I would even say probably Bret Hart. You know what I mean? Like these guys that have like the reputation of having politicked their way to the top. You hear that a lot, like they manipulated and kiss butt and everything else to get to work their way up the card into the main event, into the championship, whatever. But there's a much seedier that you can only recognize from being in it. You know what I mean? Like that's the fan politics.
Yeah.
Fan politics marries the boss's daughter and then becomes the biggest star in the company.
Exactly. Right.
But the real politics are happening with all those guys that sit back there just trying to kind of sow discord in the locker room. And when they lean over and go, "Hey, man, you're more over than that guy. Why is he in the main event?" And, or when they lean over and they say, "Man, El Diablo's getting big. You better watch out. I hear he wants your spot."
So it's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. And as much as you want to try to avoid politics and stuff, I mean, it's the weirdest thing ever, right? Because we all know that wrestling is a predetermined sport. Right. We're not actually out there fighting each other and trying to win. We're supposed to be working together to put on the best possible entertainment there can be. But everybody wants a better spot, right? Yeah. Everybody wants a better spot on the show. Everybody wants to hold on to the good spot. Everybody wants a championship because it puts them in a good spot.
Yes.
So you kind of get drug into it no matter as much as you try to stay away from it. Now, it's crazy. And another part of that too, I mean, we kind of established in the last episode that you and I have been friends since high school.
Yeah.
And you were one of the top guys during this time. I mean, you were running as the champion, but you were also helping book. So you already had that aura about you that you're the booker giving yourself the belt, because that's just a thing. Like, it doesn't matter if you are the best wrestler on the card or the best person for this role. If you're also involved in booking in any way, oh, that guy's just booking himself to get over. That's just the thing that people think about you. But
and that's a perfect, you know what I mean? Like, that's the Triple H thing too.
That is the Triple H thing.
I mean, I use that example, but whether or not he was the best or whatever your personal opinions are on Triple H will never matter, because he will always have that little asterisk of married the boss's daughter.
Exactly.
You know? So,
but see,
it was that way for me at the time.
It was that way for you, and I was friends with you.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I was friends with the cool kids in the locker room. So it's easy to also pick up that stigma as like a side effect kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Especially like the more over I'm getting, well, it's because he's friends with the bookers. Right. It's that kind of thing. So that,
Well,
so
there was absolutely an inner circle at New Midwest.
There was an inner circle. And absolutely.
I don't know if you got to see this. I saw it because I was not that I was on top, but I was a booker and the champ in that position.
Yeah.
I was in the inner circle. But then there was like the inner circle there was a Venn diagram, right? There was a circle of the cool kids that somewhat overlapped with the inner circle, but also not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you were you got to be in that.
I got to hover around that.
You got to be in the cross section.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I experienced a little bit of that. So that was definitely, about that time was the time I feel like I was really starting to experience that sort of side of wrestling a little bit. But I was also like, I was really into it at this time, and I feel like I was really improving. And this is where I was kind of starting to find myself too. Because, so when I was El Diablo Silverado, I felt like, this is a character that was given to me. It's not something I created, which is very common in indie wrestling. And I feel like this is an important part of development, honestly, because so many guys walk into training for the first time and they've already got like a notebook with this whole character idea for themselves before they've even learned how to bump.
And he's always super tough and unstoppable.
Oh, everybody always envisions themselves as the tough guy, the badass, the guy that's going to do this and that, or clown,
the ultimate warrior.
Like,
or a clown.
There's so many clowns on the indie scene. But that, that's just the thing. Like, so many guys come to learn how to wrestle, but they've already got a character idea in mind. And sometimes this is how you can weed out the guys that can really take it or not, that can really be wrestlers. Because once they realize that they're not going to just get to do that, some of them just up and quit. They give up.
Right.
I feel like it's a very important part of this whole journey to like work with what you're given and then grow from there and develop yourself and figure out who you are and develop a character from there. So
let me clarify real quick for you, because it is not a determining factor whether or not you walk into an indie school with your idea and your character.
Right.
It's the determining factor is how quickly you can let that go.
Yes.
Because I've seen guys who come to training, they have this idea. The first night, before they've taken any bumps, they are telling me about this idea for the character.
Right.
And I'm kind of like, okay, we'll see.
We'll see what happens.
Got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And they learn a couple times, and they start to bring up to me, well, when am I going to do this? Or what should my character do, or my finish? And I'm kind of like, oh, well, I don't know. And like, I've seen guys who like show up to training in their new character trying to sell me on this new character.
Yeah.
Now that is, they will not let that go. Some guys come in with their idea and they're like, oh, I got this idea, and you're like, okay, great. And then they take a couple bumps and they show up a couple nights and they realize how much they don't know.
Right.
And let go of that.
Right. Yeah, it's not, I'm not saying that that's like means that you're instantly bad for this.
Right.
And honestly, like the guys that really want to stick with it, at least that shows you've got some determination and some goals in mind, right?
Well,
but
every fan thinks about what they would do.
Exactly.
Right?
You always envision yourself walking through the curtain, walking down the aisle, hitting somebody with a chair.
Yeah.
Like that's what you think of when you think of being a wrestler.
Yep.
You don't know how much is involved in this until you get in there and start doing it and figure out if this is something you can really do or not.
Exactly.
So El Diablo was given to me because it was kind of just a joke at first. It was like they needed an extra body, throw a mask on him, give him a silly luchador name, and that's it. And then I became a real wrestler, but I stuck with that name. So like as that character, I felt like I had to do things like Japanese arm drags and like I was doing that kind of stuff, and that's kind of what my move set was, because I felt like if I'm wearing a mask, I better try to be a flashy luchador guy. But I wasn't really that guy. I've never been a high flyer. I'm not really I'm not a big guy, but I'm not a small guy either. I'm kind of like a medium guy. I don't really feel like I've got the body for a high flyer. I've never felt that way. And it never felt like something I wanted to do. Like I think the biggest high flying I do is when I do like a top rope leg drop. And I've always kind of done the leg drop. I've always liked that. But like at that time, like I was doing that because I felt like, well, this is the character. This is what I have to do. But I feel like this was around the time where I was starting to like shift from that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I kind of knew that this isn't what I wanted to do. I didn't feel this anymore. I didn't really want to do this. And you guys had put me in a tag team with Eric Logan at this time because we were both over. And that's literally how this tag team came together is because like, okay, we were both over baby faces. Yeah. And there was one show where like we did like one of those things where like two of the baby faces had to team up to take on two of the heels.
Right.
And so when the two of us came out together, we got like this mega reaction.
Yes.
And so I specifically remember Rob going, well, that's it. They're a tag team now, and we're going to put the belts on them. Yeah. Like, that was just it. Like, because of that one night, we became a tag team.
Bro, I was part of the booking committee for that. And I remember having that argument. Like, no, we need to finish this other thing. And Rob was just like, because Rob was the end-all, be-all at that point.
Right.
But, we had the committee, and we were discussing. And I remember we argued that, like, no, this is not. Like, that was the reaction we were anticipating. For one time.
Yeah.
He's like, nope, you can't walk away from something like that. And I'm just like, oh, man.
Yeah.
But it was great.
It was great. And
Tough and Stuff
is what we were called. It was real silly and campy, but it was over as heck. Yep. It was way fun. I had so much fun tagging with Steve. I guess I also forgot to mention, because what led into that was I had won my first title. I won the Central Illinois Championship in a ladder match with Scotty. And
so let's talk about that.
We should talk about that because I totally glossed over that, and that's an important step in my career. So we should.
Well, I have a specific memory of that.
Okay, all right.
Because I remember, again, I was on the booking committee at the time, and I remember you and Scott pitching me the ladder match because we had been building you guys in the feud.
Yeah, Scott really wanted to do the ladder match.
Had the belt.
He's always loved ladder matches.
So the prevailing question. I was the one who, like, you guys pitched it to me. I took it to the booking committee.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, the prevailing question was, like, I don't know if Danny's tough enough for a ladder match.
Yeah. I remember this.
Yeah. And so I was like, and I remember saying, not that I'm your white knight or anything here, obviously, in a minute.
Yeah. I know where this is going.
Yeah, because I told him, I was like, well, Danny's tough enough. He trains, he works. I know Dan. I used to backyard with Danny. He can handle it.
Yeah.
It's just a ladder match. They were like, I don't know. I was like, well, let me have a singles match with him. I will beat him up, and when he takes it, you guys will, like, then you'll accept he's tough enough.
It was a tag match.
No. It was the singles match before the tag match.
We had a singles match first. Oh, we did.
Yes.
The first.
I hit you from behind.
Man, and threw me into all those chairs. Oh my God. Yeah, that was my first night of having, like, oh, this is what a wrestling match is supposed to be like.
Yeah,
okay.
So I hadn't warned you.
No.
I know I didn't warn you.
You didn't. We had practiced this a lot because this was the time when we were going to those one-on-one training sessions, and we had worked out a ton of spots for that match. Right. Because you had taught me how to do a standing plancha over the top rope because you wanted to do that as a spot. So that was like literally like the first high-flying thing I had ever done. Yeah. But I remember working over all that. So we had kind of planned out a whole match. And I remember this was still in the time when I was real nervous going into matches. Yeah. And I was pretty nervous to be wrestling you, even though, like, I've had all this one-on-one work with you. But I still felt pretty good because we had planned everything out. I had no idea that blind side was coming. Because you jumped me on my entrance.
Yes. As soon as you came through the curtain.
As soon as I came through the curtain, Arriba! The crowd cheers. I'm walking to the ring. Here you come, as hard as you can.
Man.
Blam! Knock me on my face. You pick me up. You throw me into this row of empty chairs. I spilled onto all those. I remember just going, oh my God, this is okay. I guess this is what we're doing. And
And then it proved the point.
Yeah.
You got your ladder match.
I got my ladder match. Well, right before that, too, don't forget, we had because we were building two feuds at the same time, me and Scott and you and Tom Arson.
Yeah.
So the show right before that, we did that tag match.
Yes.
Where it was you and Scotty versus me and Tom Arson.
Absolutely. One of my favorite memories.
This is another time where you guys were testing me because you gave me that table spot. You put me through I went through my first table at this show because you did the spot where you laid me on the table and then you put a chair on my face. And then Scott jumped off the top rope to break through the table. And this chair...
Hold on.
Okay, tell your part.
I have to say, that was not the plan.
Okay.
Okay, and this was less of it, you were tested this night, but you had already passed your test. This was not an official...
All right.
This was really just part of the build to our ladder match, and me and Justin had a big match coming up. But the chair, Scotty was climbing up, and he grabbed the chair, and he's like, put this chair on him. And I'm like, no. He's like, put the chair, and he's standing on the top rope, shaking this chair at me. And he's like, put the chair on him. And
that's so Scott.
Yeah, so I take the chair, and that one is totally, and I just laid it on you, and I was like, I don't know. Sorry.
He lands on me on this table. This chair skids across my face as I'm breaking through the table. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. This is my first table spot. I had never been hit with a chair before. This was it. Other than that time you threw me into those chairs, right? So going through the table was fine. Getting landed on by Scott was fine. That chair sliding across my face sucked. And I'm wearing a mask, so you can't really tell. But I took that mask off, and the side of my face was swollen and black and blue. Oh my God, dude! I got wrecked that night.
Yeah.
So that was the show before the ladder match. Yep. But then I got to go have that ladder match with Scott, and I beat him, and I won the CI title. And that I'll always remember that as one of my big moments because first of all, Scott came out to that Eminem song, the Lose Yourself, because 8 Mile was fresh at that time. However, the tension in the room while I'm standing in the middle of the ring and that song is playing and he's making a slow walkout was kind of amazing.
Right.
I always, anytime I hear that song still to this day, I think about that night and beating him for that belt and how big of a moment that was, because that really was a turning point for me as a wrestler. Winning that belt, becoming a champion, kind of changed the way I wrestled past this point. And that led into the whole tag team thing that we were getting to, because this is where I lost the belt.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Let's talk about that a minute.
Okay.
What about that? Because we hear a lot, it's such a back and forth thing, belts are a prop, championships are fake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some people, but that's the prevailing idea. It's a prop, it's fake, it goes on the person. The person makes the belt. You hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Right? But then we also, we politic for it, and guys want it and fight for it, and then don't want to give it up, and then that stuff is real. It's not It's not quite as dramatic as it's made out to seem sometimes.
Right.
But that stuff is very real, and it definitely goes on in the business. What's so what about that made it such a big thing for you, or changed you?
That I felt like it legitimized me a little bit, right? Because El Diablo Silverado was poor Danny Erdley in a mask when we needed an extra guy. And for the longest time, I was the jobber. El Diablo never won a match. I went out there and I lost all the time. But when I took it seriously, I trained really hard. I felt like I was working really hard. And the night that I was told that I was going to be winning that belt and that I was going to be the champion, it felt like I was a real wrestler at that point. Yeah. It felt like I was part of the show, legitimately. I was a staple of the show. I knew that I was over. The crowd loved me. I felt important in that moment. I felt important. Also, that's when I first experienced the pressure that comes along with a belt.
Okay.
Because winning the belt is one thing. That's a great feeling.
Yeah.
I just won the belt. But after you've got the belt, you now have to live up to being the best, because that's what the champion's supposed to be,
Right.
is being the best. So if you're holding a belt, even if it's the mid-tier belt, like the CI title, which is what this was like the equivalent of the Intercontinental belt, if you're not familiar. Like, I felt like my spot on the show was to go out there and have the best match in the mid-card defending that belt. And that part was hard because I didn't always feel like I could live up to that, especially when I was paired with certain people that I didn't feel like I wasn't at this point yet where I was super comfortable taking charge of a match and being able to run the match. Like, I was still very much in the, well, let's talk everything out and plan everything. And when I was put in a match with somebody that couldn't really even come up with spots and I was left to do everything, that's where I kind of floundered a little bit, and it was hard. I had a hard time feeling like the champion in those specific situations. Yeah. So that's when I really felt the pressure of being a champion and realized that, it's kind of a tough job when you're the champion. Yeah. Like you're kind of you're the guy. You're supposed to be the guy at this point. So yeah, it's hard. But because I felt so cool and special with that belt, I also didn't want to lose that belt. Yeah. And this is like going back to kind of our early politic feelings. I remember when I got into the feud with Billy Morgan, which was like a 3-way feud with Eric Logan, which is how the whole tag team thing came about. But when I was told that I was going to be dropping it to Billy because it was time to put it on a heel. Yeah. Which I will say, these days, I far more believe that belts are better on heels because faces are always better chasing. And when they win the belt, that's great. And when they get some good defenses, that's great. But at some point, that gets stale. But when a bad guy's got the belt, you always hate the bad guy because he's got the belt. So it makes sense, right? But at the time, I was like, I'm not ready to give this up yet. I don't want to give this up yet. So I remember like proposing all these other ways the storyline could go, or I would lose it, but then I'd get it back, so that way it could still be my belt and this and that. And but no, I mean, like, I just had to go with what was booked, but it turned into the tag team thing because of that reaction that we talked about, and that ended up being really fun. Yeah. So I got to have a lot of fun with Eric Logan. We did win the tag titles. We got to have a fun storyline there. But the reason this part is so important, and I don't know if we still want to keep going, depending on how long you want to go on this, that's when my real development as a character and is who I am and who I was going to be was really starting to come together. Okay. Because this is the part where I was really feeling the itch to do something outside of that mask. I wanted to be more than just the silly guy running around in the silver mask with the other silly guy that had the afro, because that's what we were, right? I mean, we were over. It was fun. Yeah. But I wanted something else. I knew that I knew that I could do more than that. I knew that I wanted to grow and get better, and I was really starting to kind of change the way I wrestled at this point. And that's when we really, I convinced you guys to let me start doing the slow burn heel turn, which was awesome. And this is still, like, I don't know, man. I look back, like, it's really cool because we've got like a real great history with all of our guys, and you can look back and you can like remember specific feuds between a lot of us and really good storylines. I think it's really awesome. But I still look at like there's still a lot of people I talk to and a lot of fans that have been around for all this time that still look at the El Diablo or Spencer Powers and Eric Logan feud as like one of the big feuds in this area.
Yeah, it was.
And I love that. It's so cool. It's so cool. So we did this slow burn where like we portrayed my character as being jealous of Eric Logan because he was a little bit more popular than me. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were doing that back and forth a little bit, and we just it was a real slow burn, which is part of the reason it works so well. The slow burn stuff is, when it's done right, that's how you can really get some real emotion and build up really good storylines. So we just kind of did little things for months and months and months where, like, I'd be a little bit jealous of him, or like I was stealing the pins at the end of matches so that I was the one winning, and I was holding up both of the belts at the end instead of letting him hold up his. Little things like that where I was kind of pushing myself above him on purpose. But I remember we specifically had the one night where we knew that my heel turn was imminent and that I was going to develop into this whole new character. And I got to go out there and actually cut a promo against him. And it was one of those things where like I had never really cut a promo before.
Right.
El Diablo didn't really talk. He said Arriba.
Yeah.
Like, it was stupid. I was like
you were Mexican.
I was fake Mexican. It was the dumbest thing ever.
No,
I'm the
spoke
whitest
English.
guy in the world,
90s.
and it's dumb.
90s.
So yeah, right?
2000s.
Yeah, that's not something that we should be doing at all. That's ridiculous.
Right. Early
It's
2000s.
inappropriate. But so I got to go out there and really cut a promo, and we had practiced promos a lot in training, and I remember you kind of coaching me and complimenting me a lot on my energy with those promos and kind of giving me pointers on how I should take this character when I went out there and finally did this promo. But I got to finally cut this promo on him at the end of this match because I was mad at him for whatever, and I grabbed the microphone and I got to like really cut loose for the first time on that microphone. And it was that, like, I didn't really have a full plan. Like, I knew a guide of what I wanted to say. I wanted to accuse him of like, always hogging all the attention. We're supposed to be a team. You're always hogging all the attention. And like in that moment, I told him that he needs to stop trying to steal the spotlight because I'm the spotlight. Like, it just came out that way. It was amazing. And I remember coming backstage and I remember you saying, "That's your character. You're the spotlight."
Yeah.
Like, it was so natural and just happened organically. And like, from that night, like I remember going home that night and just being like, I am the spotlight. Right. And like that's where things really, really started to change. And that's where Spencer Powers was born. Like, I was the spotlight before we had even figured out like that my name was going to be Spencer Powers. That was like totally like, that was the unimportant part of it. The important part was, this is what my character was now. Right. I was going to go out there and I was going to be the guy that was the center of attention. Yeah. I was the guy that everybody should be looking at because I'm obviously the better one here. And that's what really, like, I don't know, like, my drive changed at this point because now I felt like I wasn't just a guy pretending to be a luchador in a mask. Now I was me. I was like really going out there. Like, I found it. Like, this is it. This is who I'm going to develop. This is who I'm going to run with. This is the guy who's going to go to the main event and get that belt one day and be the guy. This is him right here. So that was just the moment. It was awesome.
Man, that's great. And it's great when you get that moment. I think everybody, all wrestlers have that moment where they can kind of where they are like, oh, that was the turning point.
Yeah.
There's all these little steps. And I don't know that everybody really remembers every little step.
Yeah.
Maybe if we sat down and talk about it like this, which we'll find out as the series continues.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Everybody has that moment where they went out and they did something and the crowd reacted a certain way and they were like, oh.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, man. And this was this was just perfect, too, because, like, we had talked about, like, we were the hottest thing in the company kind of at the time, like, right. The two of us as a team. So when that started happening, I mean, I instantly became one of the biggest heels, like, instantly, because they loved us as a team, mm-hmm. but they really loved Eric Logan. Yeah. And if I was going to be the guy that was screwing him over, it was amazing getting that. Like, this was brand new for me. This was a completely different kind of energy than I had ever experienced before, but I loved it and I wanted more of it. Right. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, I have got these people like just totally eating out of the palm of my hand. Like, that sounds so weird and cliche, but that's exactly the way it felt. Like, I was like, this is something. Like, I've got something here. It was cool.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And what a perfect place to end this episode.
All right.
So, Danny, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you guys for watching. All the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. I don't want to get hung up on this
I know. Yeah.
We'll be back next week.
All right.
And next week, we are going to talk very specifically about your philosophies on wrestling.
Oh, okay.
And how they affect who you are today and maybe how you came across some of those philosophies, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So we will see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.